Okay. When we last ended off, I said that we're leaving off with two things. One, how is it that having this institution of marriage uh, helps the problem that you need to find your flaws? And actually, don't remember what I said. So don't worry about it. The point is, I'm going to review. I just looked at it. I forgot. The point is, I'm going to review very, very quickly. Part of the inherent nature of being a flawed being is that we have infinite potential for growth. That's the way God created us. And there is no limit. A person, a human being can continuously grow. We can continue to perfect ourselves. Now, as you grow more and more, like I said in the last video, it's sort of like slicing a circle in half. You can never run out of halves, but the halves get smaller and smaller until the point where they're imperceptible. Now, it is a tremendous kindness that God has done for us that we can continue to grow forever. We will never stop being able to grow. But at a certain point, it becomes difficult to identify the flaws that you have. Why? Because like I just said, if you keep cutting a circle in half, then eventually the circle becomes imperceptible. I know it's not a perfect analogy, but it's good and we can run with it. So if a person continues to work on his being patient and not getting angry, eventually it might seem like he conquered his anger. But did he truly? Again, human beings have infinite potential for growth, and that means he did not. But how would he now identify it? If a person has anger issues, it's very easy to identify the issue, right? If you have anger issues, hey, I keep getting angry. I have to work on this, right? Sort of like how an alcoholic, so to speak. I think this is a fairly decent analogy, right? If a person is an alcoholic, it's an obviously identifiable problem. In fact, an alcoholic is a great analogy because alcoholics often cannot identify that they are an alcoholic, even when it's obvious to everyone else, right? But at some point when they hit rock bottom, they're like, wait a minute, I have a problem. I have to deal with it. Okay, so you can identify the problem, right? The problem is that you're addicted to alcohol and it's ruining your life because you're unable to utilize alcohol responsibly and it's leading you to destruction. Okay, great. So you deal with it. Okay, so a person has anger issues. It's destroying him. It's destroying his marriage, destroying his life, whatever, right? It's destroying his friendships. So you deal with it. You go to a therapist. You figure out, why do I get triggered so easily? Why do I get angry so fast? What's causing this? What's making me feel this way? You deal with it. At a certain point, you might feel like, hey, you know what? I feel like I've conquered this. Now, what does that mean? You never get angry? Some person might say, okay, well, I still occasionally get angry, but only when my buttons are really pushed. Now, that might be okay in general, but that's not how Judaism views it. In Jewishness, in Jewish philosophy, there is no limit to how much you're supposed to work on perfection. Now, to be fair, I want to be very, very careful about what I say here. If a person has virtually no anger issue that is easily identifiable, but he has a huge issue with something else, like he has a huge issue with alcohol, and he continues working on his anger issue, then he's A, a moron, and B, obviously doing something wrong. He should work on the bigger issues. But assuming that a person really works on himself and he has all of his issues, all of his ducks in a row, he doesn't get angry easily, he's not a drinker, there's a lot going for him, right? He's patient, he's kind, he's virtuous, he's moral, he guards his eyes from seeing things that are inappropriate. Okay, he's doing all the things. Okay, but again, Judaism says that your life here is about reaching the highest level of perfection you can. That's Jewish philosophy 101. So what do? At some point, your flaws are becoming very difficult to perceive. If only there was a way that we could draw your flaws out of you. It sounds funny, right? But it's not. It's sort of how like a doctor will inject a dye into your body to trace the path of the dye through your veins to figure out where it's clogged. I'll say, oh, right there. Now I can see on the fluoroscope or whatever it is that's the spot where we need to operate because there's something clogging it up over there. Okay. So we need to draw out your flaws so that you can perceive them and say, this is what I need to work on right here. How do we do that? So there's two things you need to know before I continue. The first is people are really bad at taking criticism. People hate criticism. People hate being criticized. Hey, you can go over to somebody who's a friend of yours for a long time, and the guy loves you. You've been through thick and thin together, okay? I don't care if you saved his life. And you say to him, listen, buddy, there's something I have to tell you. You smell awful all the time. Like, it's terrible. People don't want to hang around you. Excuse me? He's very likely to be insulted. It's very few people I know in my life that I could give genuine, honest criticism to. You know, I know you think you're a really great guy, but you have a tendency to show up late a lot. It stinks. It makes me not want to work with you, right? Can you imagine your best friend comes to you? He says, listen, I need a job. Can you hire me temporarily to work with your bricklaying company? And you'd be like, I love you. We've been friends since childhood, but you show up late to everything. Think how insulted he's going to feel. Why? Why would he feel insulted? It's true. He knows it's true. He knows you're telling him the truth. So he should be like, yeah, you're right. You know, I'm going to fix that. And then I'm going to come back to you. That's not how people are. Human beings find it very, very hard to take criticism. Okay. That's one thing you have to know. The second thing you have to know is that, again, if your flaws are imperceptible, it's not going to be so easy to draw them out. If only there was some kind of partnership that two humans could develop where every nuance of their relationship constantly caused them to butt up against each other. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. This is the Jewish concept of marriage. In Judaism, marriage is this ultimate partnership beyond anything you can imagine. And this is really, by the way, again, I think I've said this in the past, but I'm going to say it now because it needs to be said. God is infinite, and that means in his infinite wisdom, there are often many, many, many purposes for an institution or a concept or a precept or a commandment. And that is very true of marriage. Obviously, one of the purposes of marriage is to have children and the family unit and raising them in the best way, of course. However, one of the purposes of marriage, and I believe that I might dare say one of the primary purposes of marriage is this, and that is that when you're married, the person you're married to becomes close to you in a way that there is no relationship or friendship that can compare to it. Why? Because the two partners in a marriage are not equal. They are equal in terms of their weight in the marriage. That's a different discussion. Men versus women. It's not the topic I'm addressing now. You'll have to take me on my word that I genuinely believe, as my rabbi of many years, or Shai Cohn does, and he's told me this very, very often and drilled it into my head, that men and women, as far as God is concerned, we are meant to be partners who are complementary to each other, right? With an E. So we are equal in the weight that we have. However, we're not equal in the exactitude of what we are. We're not equal partners. We have different roles, right? And because of that, in a proper marriage, there is a dependency that develops. I do things that my wife does not do. My wife needs me to do things that she cannot do. We have different roles. And so in order to create this perfect partnership where we face the world and do everything we need to do together facing the world, she comes to rely on me emotionally and psychologically in a way that is incredible and intertwined and different. There's no relationship, there's no friendship that you can have with a human being outside of the institute of marriage where you form a unit. And the same thing is true for me. I rely on my wife emotionally, psychologically, physically. She has to do certain things, whether she's a stay-at-home mom or whether she's working, whether I'm a stay-at-home dad or whether I'm working, wherever we are, whatever our roles are in regards to raising the children, in regards to making sure the house is kept, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. The point is that we come to rely on each other. I view her as an extension of me. She views me as an extension of her. Our lives are so intertwined that to unravel them is a reckoning that I don't even want to, God forbid, think about. We are totally reliant and dependent on each other. In that world, you still would have a hard time criticizing someone. It's crazy to think about, but that's how fragile we are. That's how egotistical we are. Even then, when your wife insults you or when husband insults his wife, it stings. That's not my heart. I know. It's wait, that is. All right, forget. It stings. It hurts because it hurts to hear negative words. She said I'm terrible at this. She said I get angry too quickly at the kids. But you don't even have to do that because in a proper marriage, the flaws get drawn out of you. Why? Because there are going to be situations where this other person who's relying on you, things happen, stresses happen in life, and there's another person there and it exacerbates it. Because when it's you, you can ignore, bury, and hide things. But when there's another person there, you can't. So when there's a tense situation, you're feeling a little tense, you have it under control, and then your wife goes, "Did you see how close you were to that car?" And you're like, "Do you want to drive?" What are you doing? If you were alone in the car, you would have been like, whatever. Okay, that guy was really close. That was a close shave. Turn on the radio, move on. But your wife is there, and she's feeling tense, and you're feeling tense. And then she says something, and you're like, wow, I thought I had that under control. I thought I had perfected myself to the level where I wouldn't snap at her. And I did. I snapped at her. Well, now I know what I have to work on. Isn't that incredible? If you utilize that relationship properly, your wife, your life partner, becomes a sort of funhouse mirror for you. In her, You will see flaws that you have reflected, drawn out. It just comes up because another human being has their own desires, their own life, their own mentality, their own way of thinking. They were raised in a different family. They have different traditions and culture. Even within Judaism, they have different ways of looking at things. They have different approach to finance and a different approach to child rearing. And in that tension, that constant tension that comes from life, where you live it together, in that tension, things will happen that will cause you, if you're paying attention, to realize things about yourself. There is no other tool that human beings have that can do this. None. Without a wife, you will not be able to perceive the depth of your own flaws. It's not possible. You can't do it. That is incredible. Now, this is a short episode. And I said last time, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to say that again, but who knows? But I want to leave it here. 10 minutes, easily digestible. Think about that. Think about the incredible value you get out of that. And then let's think about, is there another relationship that works like this? Is there something in my life that will help me be able to accept, listen to, and absorb criticism? How will I see my flaws that I didn't even know I had? And that enable me to work on them because I didn't know they were there. What a tool. Society wants to throw that away. What are they going to replace it with? Are we just giving up on this great tool of self-improvement? So when you hear people say things like, marriage is a failed institution, well, the first thing that should come to your head, and this is not the only thing, we're going to talk a lot more about this topic in the coming episodes, but I just want you to think about that. Marriage is a failed institution. This is the only institution that gives people the kind of insight into themselves that they could never ever achieve otherwise. Have a great day. Thank you for listening. If you like this, please let me know and share it. And I don't know. Love you. Blaze and Laser out.